Hello and welcome to Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. I am Colred. Thank you for joining me. Emic Trunkheart is in the game. The Fusion event has started. The Fusion calendar has finally dropped, and we will be looking at that in this video today. And I will be giving you my Fusion event plan that I intend to follow. I'll also be telling you how you can maybe tweak that depending on where you are in the game. Early game player, mid game player, depending on how many resources you have. What level of arena battles you're going to be doing, and so on and so forth, what levels of dungeons. There are tweaks that you can make. Now, if you're not sure if you can go after this champion, you should please watch my video. It was my preview video on Emic Trunkheart. I will have the card up here. And watch that first, because that's going to give you a better idea of whether or not you can actually complete this Fusion event. So before we take a look at the Fusion event calendar, I do want to address Firegun Isabel, who is the epic involved in this hybrid Fusion event. So we're going to be collecting copies of Firegun Isabel through fragments. And I want to talk about this champion because for some of you, you may get extra copies of Firegun Isabel. For some of you, she may be the primary goal in this Fusion if you know you can't go for Trunkheart himself. But you can make this consideration about whether or not it is worth going, maybe just for some of the events, some of the tournaments, collecting enough fragments to get this champion instead. Okay, let's check out her A1. Attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of decreasing the duration of a bomb debuff by 1 turn. That doesn't have to be her bomb, it doesn't look like. Also has a 25% chance of placing a bomb debuff on a random enemy for 1 turn. Instantly detonates the bomb debuff placed on that random enemy. So if she does place a bomb with this skill at a 25% chance, she will instantly detonate it. It doesn't seem like she will detonate any other bombs, just this particular one. All bomb debuffs placed by this skill on enemies whose max HP is higher than 200,000 will deal 20% more damage. So that is primarily targeted at bosses or maybe high-level wave content where the wave champions have a lot of base HP. This is not a PvP skill, because nobody in PvP typically gets to 200k HP. That would be really, really hard to do. Okay, it doesn't look like her books increase any of her debuff chances, so it's just increasing her damage. Quick note, I'll say this right now, all of the bomb damage comes from the attack stat on this champion, so crit rate and crit damage do not increase the damage of the bombs. Crit rate and crit damage can increase the damage of the hit, so you'll notice this attacks one enemy. That will do some damage. Then there's a bomb that will do additional damage. The attack will benefit from crit rate and crit damage, but in a lot of cases, those attacks don't hit particularly hard with bomb champions, and it's the bombs themselves that you want to focus on. So you can actually not bother investing in crit rate or crit damage on a bomb champion. Instead, you need to increase accuracy. That is the stat that's really important, because remember, bombs are debuffs. So if you can't land a debuff, you can't land a bomb, and you do no damage. Okay, the A2 attacks 2 times. The first hit has a 100% chance when booked of placing 2 bomb debuffs that detonate after 2 turns. The second hit has an 80% chance of applying a debuff spread effect, taking 1 bomb debuff and placing it on all other enemies. So it doesn't spread any debuffs except bombs, but this is actually good for maybe wave clearing content or like multiple target content like boss fights like Hydra Clan boss, or maybe some like maybe spider boss, even low levels of spider boss where you want to kill off the spiderlings, because if she can spread those bombs to everybody, then she can blow up everybody. All bomb debuffs placed by the skill on enemies whose max HP is higher than 200,000 will deal 50% more damage. Okay, so I don't know why this skill has 50% more damage and this one has 20% more damage, but again, there's a passive that increases the damage of the bombs on bosses and high HP targets. A3 is an AoE, has a 100% chance of placing a large weaken debuff for 2 turns. This looks like it's on a 4-turn cooldown. Grants an extra turn if weaken was placed on all enemies by this skill. I like this ability. I like this ability quite a bit, and I think it synergizes well with her kit. One of the things about bomb champions is they need that high accuracy, like I said, which means if they're landing bombs, they can land other debuffs at the same rate, right? If they're getting resisted on their bombs, they're going to get resisted on other debuffs. If they're landing their bombs, they could land other debuffs. Not every bomb champion brings other debuffs, but she's bringing a weaken, and she's getting an extra turn if it's placed on all enemies, which then allows her to use her AoE with that weaken out there. And weaken increases the damage of the bombs when they explode on targets with weaken. So this is really good synergy. Now, the one downside of this, the one tricky thing of this is you have to remember she is an affinity champion. She's force affinity. So she will weak hit 30% of the time against spirit affinity targets. Now that matters on this turn, or that matters on this skill, because if you miss one weaken, you don't get the extra turn. Okay, so you want to be careful about where you use her. But if you're going up against force affinity, magic affinity, or void affinity targets, then you don't have to worry about the weak hit. You just have to worry about accuracy. Her aura increases accuracy in all battles by 40%, which is very nice. That's generally a good aura for bomb champions to have. If we look at her stats, she has a very nice high base attack, which is really good for a bomb champion, over 1.5k, 1500. She also has a good speed rate of 102, and she's got a little bit of accuracy already at 15. So if you build her out, it's going to be a little bit easier to land those debuffs and to land those bombs. And it looks like she's a little bit of a mini version of Nishak Verminlord, who is a very good bomb champion. And Nishak Verminlord is great against Bommel in Doom Tower, so she may be equally good against Bommel, or potentially she could be teamed up with Nishak to kind of provide a double bomb threat. So right now I'm liking her kit. If you don't have a bomb champion or you don't have a Bommel solution, she might be valuable. I don't know that she's going to be super strong because I don't know what her damage multipliers are on her bombs. I don't know if bombs even have damage multipliers, but sometimes some champions' bombs seem to hit harder than others' champions' bombs, but maybe that's just the difference in attack. So pretty good champion. If you can't go after Emic Trunkheart and you want some fusion practice, maybe you've never completed a fusion before, or you think you can get value out of a bomb champion like Firegun Isabel, I would recommend you at least try a few events, a few tournaments, and see if you can collect a couple of copies of her. Remember, you only need one copy to build the champion, but extra copies can be used as epic tomes to book her out, so that's always an advantage. And maybe even you want to use two of her at low levels, say in faction crypts or something, so maybe 2 level 40 Isabels could be fun, because they'd be lowering cooldowns on bombs and stuff. All right, let's move on from Isabel and go look at the actual calendar for Emic Trunkheart. Here we've got this fusion event calendar. Now this looks different than any hybrid fusion I've ever seen before. And one of the reasons is there is only one epic champion in the mix. Typically there is more than one epic champion in the mix. So this is a little bit simpler. I appreciate that. I think that's great from Plarium. I've also noticed a lot of synergies in terms of the events and tournaments in this particular fusion event. So I think that's very nice, but there is a price to pay. And that is the extra fragments in this fusion event all come from a summon rush event, and it is a second summon rush event. So really you need to plan on getting all of your fragments, all 400 fragments for Firegun Isabel from these 16 events. And unless you are a spender, you want to ignore this summon rush right in the middle. We're not going to be looking for any extra fragments. We're going to try to be 100% clean, 100% perfect on these 16 events and tournaments, and that should be enough. So one thing to note here is that there is a summon rush that starts tomorrow on the second day of the event. So if you pull shards during this summon rush and you happen to hit a Firegun Isabel, that's going to give you a lot of extra leeway because you can use that copy of the champion instead of needing to go out and get 100 shards for that copy. So that's going to save you from the need to do 4 other events or tournaments. Now, I typically like to plan out which ones I want to skip based on the resources I have. So for instance, if I am running low on silver, I might say, okay, I'm going to skip this last artifact enhancement event, or maybe even skip the one in the middle and then try to get more silver to do the last one. So that's certainly something you could do. In addition, you could potentially maybe skip a champion training event. These can be long affairs. Sometimes you don't have all of the resources you need, or you don't have the energy that you need to complete those. So that might be one to skip. Another one I typically skip would actually be another shard event. So I might skip the champion chase tournament. However, you should know this up front. This weekend of August 11th through August 13th, there will be a 2x Ancient Shard event happening during the Champion Chase tournament. So if you are going to be pulling shards anyway because you want to pull shards during that 2-time event, you're probably not going to skip this Champion Chase tournament. Okay, so in this particular fusion, I'm probably going to do both shard events, but I might be able to skip some of the other events and, save on some energy, some silver, some gems, and so on. Okay, so now again, if you have watched my previous video, you know that you needed to save up some resource, and you also know how many resources kind of go into each of these different events. But I'm going to start laying out my plan. Now, one of the things that I've seen right away, which is really nice, is that the Dragon Tournament and the Dungeon Divers event that have both started today are on very similar timers. Okay, so basically I can jump into this Dragon Tournament right away and start double dipping on my energy. So for Dragon Tournaments, you need to collect artifacts. For Dungeon Divers, you need to collect artifacts. So you're going to get points from the dungeon, from the Dragon dungeon, and that's going to give you points in both the tournament and the event. One thing to note is that the Dragon Tournament is a little bit easier to complete than the Dungeon Divers event. So I'm going to talk about that just a little bit. We're going to jump back to the game, and I'm going to show you the Dragon Tournament so you can start to plan and see if you can complete this style of tournament. I am here in my tournaments section, and you can see there's a Dragon Tournament. You can see how much time is left. You can also get a preview of what's coming within 24 hours. We already know the Champion Training event is happening. I'm sorry, the Champion Training Tournament is happening. But it will start in 14 hours and 33 minutes. Every time a new event is supposed to hit the calendar, you want to know what time of day it starts, and you want to know what time of day it ends, because that way you can plan in your day when you need to actually be on your phone or on your computer or on your tablet doing these events and tournaments. I'll jump into the Dragon Tournament here, and you can see where you get points. So your artifacts will drop, and they will give you a combination of points based on the rank of the artifact. So 4, 5, 6, and then the bonus points you get for the rarity. So if you get a legendary, you get 5 bonus points. If you get an epic, you get 2 bonus points. So if I pulled a 5-star epic, I would be getting 15 plus 2. That would be 17 points. And that is how you accumulate points. You can see we have 2,250 points required here. For the 25 fragments for Isabel. Okay, there are obviously other rewards here, and you can also go over this number if you have the energy to do so and the time to do so. But this is the minimum requirement you're going to need to collect Isabel. One thing you should know is that stage 20 of the dungeons is generally the most efficient return on investment in terms of energy. So the points you get per energy is highest at stage 20. You don't need to go above stage 20. If you can't go to stage 20, the other stages you should focus on are stage 16 and stage 11. Okay, and the reason that these are the most efficient is because those are the highest stages with their particular energy requirement. So you can see at stage 12, the energy goes up. And so stage 12 is actually much less efficient per energy than stage 11. And again, now we have 14 energy all the way up to stage 16. So stage 16 has the highest drop rates, the best rewards for 14 energy. So it is more efficient than stages 15, 14, 13, so on. So what you need to be able to do in order to complete one of these tournaments is you need to either be able to do stage 20, stage 16, or at least stage 11. One of the things to remember is that these are efficient in terms of points per energy. But the lower the stage, the longer it will take for you to accumulate the points you need. So at stage 11, you're going to be running many more battles than you would be at stage 16 or stage 20. It won't take more energy total. It'll take about the same amount of total energy, but it may take more time and more button clicks. So for instance, if you're trying to do this with auto battles, you're going to run out of auto battles if you're doing it on stage 11. Even if you're doing it on stage 20, you're probably going to run out of auto battles or get very close, but you might be able to complete stage 20 with just auto battles. So you are probably going to have to manual this a little bit if you are not at stage 20, and you should be aware of that and plan for that in terms of the time you're going to spend on the game or the time the game is just going to sit next to you running. There is one difference with this for the other tournaments. All of the other tournaments are the same except for Spider's Den. In Spider's Den, instead of running stage 11, you typically want to run stage 10. Stage 10 is actually more efficient. Here, it also has better drop rates. So you might get more 5 and 6 star gear out of stage 10 than stage 11 or all the way up to 16. If you can run 16, you run 16. If you can run 20, you run 20. You do not go above that unless you just have a lot of resources. Finally, let's just note that you have a little symbol here, their little running man, and it says ×2. That's really nice. They often do that during fusion events on these dungeons during tournaments. And so basically when you go into a battle, you click battle, you'll see super raids here. And this just means that you are going to run two runs at a time. You can see the energy requirement here doubles, and you will get double the drops. So you get 2 drops instead of 1 as rewards. You'll get double the silver. It's just like you completed it twice as fast. That's basically what they're doing. So it's a little bit of a nice gift from Plarium, I guess. I mean, I wish they would give us, even faster ways to complete these dungeons, but it is better than running them singly. So go ahead and click on your super raids, and then you'll be able to move through this a little bit more quickly. Okay, now let's talk about efficiency, especially early on in the tournament. I already talked about double dipping, but like we said, the Dragon tournament will end before the Dungeon Divers tournament. And it won't end like on the calendar, but it'll end for you. You will hit your goal in the Dragon tournament before you hit your goal in the Dungeon Divers event. And what that means is you're going to still have to spend more energy in the Dungeon Divers event. For most players, a dungeon tournament like Dragon tournament or Fire Knight tournament will take roughly 2,000 energy, but a Dungeon Divers event will take as much as 5,000 energy. So there's a lot more energy investment there than there is in a tournament. Now you have 2 choices about how to approach this. Actually, I have maybe more than 2 choices, but there are 2 main choices. The first one is if you have the energy, you can continue to drop that energy in your dungeon tournament. So you could just spend all 5,000 energy on the Dragon tournament, and that's going to let you complete the Dungeon Divers event and the Dragon tournament at the same time. The nice thing about spending all that extra energy in the Dragon tournament is you might be needing speed gear, and you get speed gear from the Dragon tournament because you get that from Dragon. So that can be good. Also, if you get gear that you don't need, you can sell it, so you can get a lot of silver that way. And then finally, you can climb the leaderboards and potentially get into the top 10 of the tournament and get additional rewards that way. So there is a benefit to using all of your energy in a dungeon tournament, but there's also another way to potentially pursue completing the Dungeon Divers event. And that would be switching gears and getting into this champion training tournament. Now, when you run champion training, the most likely place you're going to run that is in campaign. So you get into 12-3 brutal, hopefully, and you're farming that. Now, you're going to get a lot of silver out of that. Obviously, you have to do more runs because it's a lot less energy to run campaign. But that's going to allow you to farm up your food champions, get them to 2 stars, 3 stars, 4 stars, fully leveled up. And that's where you get your champion training points. Now, the most efficient way to do champion training is actually to combine the use of brews with the campaign farming. So there are videos on that out there. I have not done my own video on how to do a champion training tournament yet. At some point in the next week, I probably will. But if you're curious today, you can just search that in YouTube. You'll find a lot of content creators with really good advice on how to complete a champion training tournament. Okay, so that's another way to potentially complete your Dungeon Divers event. One thing to consider is that it will take longer to do that. And also, remember you're getting fewer points per run. So you will not accumulate points as fast. And in fact, it may take you more than 5,000 energy to then do your Dungeon Divers event. So you may want to switch back to the Dragon tournament, in the last day just to make sure you complete that Dungeon Divers event. Or if you just plan ahead and you can really front load that champion training tournament, you can do that as well. I want to give you one last tip here on efficiency. If you are really trying to stretch every single bit of progress you can make out of all of your energy and silver and gems, there is a way to actually triple dip here at the beginning of the tournament, and there may be later on as well. One of the things that you can do is if you can run whatever your highest stage is, whether that's 16 or 20 in the Dragon, if you can complete that stage with fewer than 5 champions. So let's say you can run it with 3 champions, or maybe you can even solo it. What you can do is put food champions in those extra spots. So let's say I can just run it with 4 champions. I have 1 extra spot. I can now put food champions there and start to get XP on those food champions while I'm running the Dragon Tournament. So that would help me in champion training. I don't necessarily need to do that in the first day of the Dragon Tournament, but once the champion training starts, I can squeeze a little bit of extra XP out of my energy by not completing the Dragon runs with 5 fully leveled champions. Okay, so consider that as a way to potentially triple dip here. Get points from Dragon Tournament, get points from champion training, and get points from Dungeon Dive. Okay, so what we know so far is we're going to need 2,000 energy for each tournament, so that's about 8,000 energy there. Remember that you are getting energy from a bunch of sources during the course of the tournament, so if you don't have 8,000 energy right now, that is not a huge deal. Like, every day, you're going to get your login rewards. Every day, you're going to get rewards from the various tournaments that you are doing or the events you are completing. You'll get your login daily rewards. And also, remember your passive energy growth. So you want to get down to 0 energy as quickly as possible. Dump all your energy into Dragon Tournament. You have to get down to 0. So that would be more than enough to cover all of the tournaments if I'm using that wisely, and also to cover all of my Dungeon Divers events if I'm using it wisely. Because one of the things you'll notice is every day there is a Dungeon Divers event, there are tournaments going on. There looks like there might be a little bit of a gap here, but there's enough coverage for the second event to also be totally covered. And then the third one obviously is fully covered between Fire Knight and Spider Tournament. So you should never have to put extra energy into the Dungeon Divers events that you can't put into the tournaments. Obviously, you have a higher cap, so you're going to need more energy there, but you can always double dip. There's never a moment where you can't double dip on the Dungeon Divers. So make sure that you're always doing that to be efficient. Really quickly, let's talk about Classic Arena takedowns. If you are in high gold, gold 4 or 5, this will be a breeze. Just do your normal arena tokens per day and you should be totally fine. Keep an eye on it because you don't want to be too lax about it and then mess up one of these, because it should be the easiest tournament for you. If you are in silver or low gold, this is going to be a bit of a grind. If you are in silver 1 or below, if you're in bronze, you will not be able to complete this fusion event. That's just the way this works. There's no real way to grind enough medals in bronze. Now, if you've built a new arena team and you're going to be climbing into, say, high silver or low gold during this fusion event, that's certainly possible. Then you might be able to do it if you are using a lot of tokens and winning a lot of fights. If you are in silver or low gold, you may want to consider not only using all of the 39 tokens that you get every day, but even spending some gems on refills for Classic Arena. Everybody, whether you are doing this fusion event or not, whether you are bronze, silver, gold, or platinum, maybe not platinum, please change your arena defenses today to a one-man defense. That helps everybody out. Nobody should be trying to climb ranks during these Classic Arena takedowns unless you are in bronze, right? Unless you're really weak and you want to complete the fusion and you need to get up into high silver to even have a chance. Those are the only people who should be attempting to climb, okay? So if you make a weak defense, that just means that everybody is going to get more arena medals and they're going to increase the likelihood that the community succeeds on a whole at this fusion event. So let's all be friendly to one another and switch to one-man defenses, please. Thank you very much for this public service announcement. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, now let's go ahead and talk about the actual artifact enhancement events down at the bottom. We know that each of these takes roughly 20 million silver. Remember, you don't have to have it all saved up now, but you do want to start accumulating silver at the beginning of this event if you haven't saved up already. You will be getting silver from all of the tournaments at the top. So all of the dungeon tournaments, you may be getting silver if you're running campaign for the champion training. So you do have sources of silver coming in. Don't forget your forge. You can forge 3 and 4-star gears from your low level materials and sell that. That's a good way to get extra silver. You can do a good old fashioned gear cleanse. If you happen to hit one of these epics on the summon rush, what I would suggest here is if you get a free Isabel, skip one of these artifact enhancement events because silver is a hard commodity to come by. Okay, finally, let's address the shard events. There are 3 of them. There is the summon rush here, there is the extra summon rush here, and there is the champion chase tournament. As I said, the champion chase tournament happens during a 2x ancient shard event, so you will probably be going in on that one regardless. But one thing to consider is if you have champions you can get from any other sources, whether those are fragment champions you've saved up or champions you're farming from your campaign, or champions you get from login rewards. Any other champions will also give you points, and that can potentially alleviate the burden of the shards that you need to pull. I would say for most players, they're going to need between 60 and 80 ancient shards for this tournament. That should be enough based on the 2-time event. Typically, I would recommend at least 100 shards, maybe more. But in this case, because it's a 2-time event, we can probably significantly cut that down. And I think 60 might be enough for most people. If you're running short of ancient shards, remember you can buy them from the shop in-game. You can get 11 ancient shards for 900 gems. So if you have enough gems in reserve and you're a few shards short, you can go that route. For the summon rush down here, you are typically going to need a minimum of 5 sacred shards. Sacred shards are the best shards to use during a summon rush because the number of points that they give you is so high, it's 500 points. Ancient shards only give you 10 points for a summon rush. So unless you are absolutely desperate, do not use your ancient shards for the summon rush. Save them up for the 2-times event during the champion chase. I don't spend void shards ever during one of these events. You can choose if you want to during the summon rush. I would highly recommend you don't unless there's no other way to get to the point total. Remember, this is the reason we hoard mystery shards. So hopefully you have 500 or 1,000, or like me, you have 3,000 mystery shards in reserve. I could probably complete this entire summon rush with just mystery shards if I needed to. So you always want to have as much leeway there in case you're a couple of sacred shards short, or you don't want to use void shards and you still desperately need a few hundred points to close out this summon. Okay, so that is it for the Fusion event calendar. We should hopefully have the totals being tracked down here below the calendar for you. But again, remember that you can continue to accumulate resources over the course of this event. The one thing you don't want to count too much on is sacred shards or void shards. You should be able to get a few more ancients. Obviously, this is a 2-week event, so you're going to probably pick up maybe a dozen or more ancient shards during the event. But again, remember, they're not valuable after the Champion Chase tournament ends. So you really need them probably by August 13th at the latest, and the last 5 days don't matter. All right, here is one last look at this Fusion champion, Emic Trunkheart. I think he's going to be a great champion, and if you decide to go for him, I wish you luck. If you have decided to take the consolation prize of Isabel, the epic bomber, then great. That could be a great choice for you. And if you decided to pass altogether and maybe save up your resources for a future fusion, I hope that works out for you as well. Before I go here, I just want to say thank you to the entire community, to all the viewers who have been supporting us for the last few weeks. We have hit our first major milestone of 500 subscribers. We just hit that early in the morning today, so I woke up to that. That was a great way to start my workday. So thank you so much for all of the support. If you are enjoying the content here on Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends, please drop a like to this video or go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you can get notifications whenever I upload new content. Thanks so much. It's really been a great ride. We plan to keep it going. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you in another video very soon.